Yeah, it's like the person who does CrossFit or is a vegan, like they just want to tell you all about, like
Yeah.
they're just waiting for how long they can take to tell you about their new CrossFit idea or their new vegan
Yeah.
understanding. Like I'm a vegan, like, and this changes the way everything works in reality, and
Yeah.
you should really. It's almost it's ironic, like it's almost like back in the Crusade days when the Christians went to save the what do you call it, the heathens, right? They went to convert the heathens and save them from their horrible low levels of everything, right? Like there's an underlying tone of that in on the left these days,
Yeah.
which is ironic because you would think it would come from the right, but it comes more so from the left, being like, you know, you horrible meat eating capitalists, white supremacists, like heathens, like we're gonna save you from. And it's like, hold on, like, wait, what? Like, what are you saving me from? And that's where it becomes problematic, I think, like because what you do is you create a moral high ground, and
Right.
from that moral high ground you can look down upon and condone the mistreatment of others,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm afraid is coming, uh, right? Like using the last 4 years as a justification to and then these provocations like at the Capitol, and these people own guns, right? And like they're white supremacists and they're all horrible people, and you know what I'm saying? And like now it's okay to go in and start taking away their guns because these are the bad people, and then you implement policies to disarm the people, and from there, then the people don't really have a means to defend themselves against the government, and that's what I think is trying to happen. And I never saw how they could do that because the right, although there are some extreme right individuals for sure, they're very few and far between, and most of them, like you said, they're very value and principle based, and God and things like that, and that usually falls in line with following man's laws, right? Like they're
Yeah.
very law and order oriented. Like when I saw, like you could see like the difference when people say Antifa was there. Like
Mhm.
you see people like climbing fences and breaking down fences and doing all these things, and then once they got in the Capitol, right? There's a meme about the Trump supporters uh, following the velvet ropes, like when they were like they're in there and they're like following the velvet ropes, like, you know, you got the order, you got to follow the rules. And like those were the idiots who got suckered in behind Antifa, right? Like they came in, they're like, oh, I guess we're going into the Capitol and we're
Oh,
gonna
oh,
follow the velvet ropes. And I'm like, that's not what rioters look like. Like those were the idiots who followed the idiots. You know what I'm saying?
exactly, exactly.
I was like
Yeah.
like you could see the contrast between the
You
guys who were
did you see that
instigating.
well, did you see that video circulating of this, like, black cop who's being chased up the stairs in the Capitol, and it's like a movie, and he's like, "Ah," and then he runs, and this is a young guy after him, and run, and they go up the stairs. Oh my god, it's so funny. So the cop gets into this rotunda, and there are other cops, and he's like, "Save me," and he stands with the other cops, and the other cops are like, I don't remember what they were doing with their guns or whatever, but then these like patriots come up, and the guy who was like right behind the cop, he puts his hands up, and the patriots are standing there, and he's like, he says something to the effect of, "Hey dude, we're with you, we're here for you, we're all in this together." He's trying to explain to them, like, we're here for you, like, we're Americans, you're Americans, like, our cause is your cause, we're trying to save the nation, whatever, all of that stuff. And so this little video is making its rounds, but nobody's listening to what they're saying. And so people are saying, well, if that was a white cop, do you think that if it was a white cop and they were black, he would have shot them down, and these dangerous guys. And I'm like, all these guys are unarmed, and you know, well, you just have to see the video. It's kind
Yeah,
of
I think I've seen it. I didn't listen to it like you're saying. But like they didn't actually hurt the guy. Like the guy was running like they were going to hurt him, but like it just
Yeah. We
never
just
escalated.
talk to him.
Like they got to him and they're like, "Oh, we don't actually want to do anything," and he was like, yeah, "This is weird."
Yeah.
And
It's just so awkward.
yeah,
But I don't know. It's like I know I'm laughing. It's the whole thing is so incredibly absurd to me. And and then it's like this is so dangerous. And I keep thinking, wow, if like all just what happened on that day, I was there for 4 hours, just for what happened on that day, if I were to make it into screenplay, I doubt it would sell. Like I wouldn't find a publisher. They would just go, this is just too much.
yeah.
This is
What
too
do you mean?
much. Okay, so the Muriel Bowser, the mayor of DC, does stand down orders for cops. So she limits the number of cops that can be over there at the Capitol.
Yeah,
Right. And then you've got the Trump supporters who go from like one end of the mall to the back of the Capitol expecting to go to a health freedom rally. And Antifa, and it looks like BLM took over, and you know they went through one and then two barriers and all of that, and then it's like this ridiculous scenario with these guys with their rifles and their eyes are in the thingy and they're like this on
yeah,
the balcony, and you know it's like the bear spray and the pepper spray and the tear gas and the rubber bullets and the flashbangs, and it's just going on forever, and everybody basically is just being peaceful and cheerful, and then you know, breaking into the Capitol, breaking the window open, but then again, they're officers that like let let people in, and they open the door and they're like, "You're not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be here," and they're like waving people into the Capitol, and then there are all of these little scenarios and vignettes, and then this woman gets shot, and I don't know, it's just so incredibly ridiculous, and then the media spin and narrative and um, you know the media not showing that there were people of other races in the crowd, and so if this is a sea of white supremacists, how can a white person survive, I mean a black person survive in that crowd? Do you know what I mean? Like
is that
sure that I'm
it?
sure that if I went there and I wore a Black Lives Matter t-shirt or something like that, like I'm sure I'd get dirty looks from people, but I don't think anybody would try to hurt me. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like people would probably look at me like, what the hell is wrong with you? You know? And then there was like the one lone conservative flag I saw there the whole time. How did that flag wind up in the Capitol? And it was huge. Like, who let that flag in? And then now it's like there are all these photographs of this guy carrying the flag from all different angles, and they're using it in articles, and it's going to go in the history books. And it's so incredibly ridiculous. And it just makes me really think about all the history that we know, like all of these like incidences that were turning points in US history, or you know, closed out one era and began a new one. Like, is any of that real? Like, how real is it?
yeah. Like it's like if you go back and you look at almost every war we've ever gotten into, there's a turning point, right? Like this is the incident that happened, and usually what you find is that either we let it happen so that we had an excuse to get into it, or we help instigate it,
Yeah.
right? And like the Gulf of Tonkin, people would say Pearl Harbor, you know, all these events that were the turning points of us getting into a war um, were very conscious decisions, right?
Yeah.
And uh, it's not to say that it wasn't already occurring, right? But they were escalated and controlled and things like that. And most people don't see history that way. They don't see history as uh, governments being manipulative and controlling narratives to the people to for the ends of whatever it is they're trying to achieve. Usually it's financial or natural resources or something along those lines, right? And uh, taking that step and seeing that that could be happening on American soil, if you don't have that history and that understanding of the way conflicts are escalated and actually manipulated to get into, so that you control the narrative going into, uh, it's hard to believe that something like that could happen on U.S. soil. It's hard to believe even if you do know those things, but that's the thing. Like, from what it sounds like, from what I've heard from you and from what I've seen of the footage, it looks like, Trump supporters were out being Trump supporters, like, this is crazy, yada yada, and you had some bad actors that were there who knew how to control a crowd and pushed them up into the thing, and the idiots followed and then got there and didn't really know what to do, and so they needed to cause some chaos. So the guys who were, kind of steering the crowd just did the chaos and got some film cameras on them and made it look worse than it was, right?
Yeah.
And you know, and unfortunately, a couple people got hurt, but like it wasn't it, it wasn't like they didn't destroy the building. They didn't catch the building on fire. They didn't do the things that a mad crowd would do, that was behaving the way the narrative was supposed to have said they were behaving, right? Like every time you go into these like in third world countries and stuff, when this happens, they go in with guns and they, now granted, we may have some CIA operatives like shooting the guns and handing them the guns and here, throw this Molotov cocktail, that type of stuff, and supplying them. But it doesn't seem like it got escalated to that level. And you know what I'm saying? Like,
I feel like they were trying, like for at least 3 hours, they were really, really trying. And I'm sure for the people like in the chambers, like at that Congress session, to them it sounded like a massive warfare because it was
yeah.
so noisy. And it was like bang, 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 and like and bang, bang, bang. And so it was like
So
there was a psychological operation that was done on the people.
yeah, so like what that would tell me, with my little understanding of things, is that this was not a well planned out large group of people who had planned to come and storm the Capitol,
Yeah.
right? Like there wasn't an organized group, uh, in the sense that, like, from the conservative side, there just doesn't seem like that was happening. They were coaxed into participating in something a smaller group had a plan to do, and that's just what it looks like from the outside. Which is, because like I think if there was actual militias and groups, they would have shown up with guns and they would have tried to maybe take over the Capitol. But that doesn't seem like
Well,
that
I
happened
mean,
at all.
that explains those videos of police ushering people in, police just ushering Trump supporters into the building because they needed the footage of like, you know, a room full of Trump supporters because the Trump people were reticent to go in the building. I mean, there's so much footage of people like, attacking, pulling down Antifa who are trying to get into the building. Like men were like pulling them back and no, you're not getting into the building and like, get out of here, beating them up and, getting them away from there. And so like for the filming, right, it's important to have, oh, look at all these Trump supporters who came into the Capitol and they have no respect. And that's why they were like literally herding Trump supporters into the Capitol because
Yeah,
they
so
needed that for the optics. They needed that for the footage. And I think what they were expecting was Trump supporters to want to storm the Capitol, but people really didn't want to storm it. They didn't have enough people who wanted to storm in there. I think
yeah,
a few people who wanted to do it, but they didn't have enough because most Trump supporters, I mean, the Capitol is sacred ground. I mean, like people revere it. It's a very special place. And so you don't go in unless you're invited. You don't go. So,
And then when you do go in, you use the velvet ropes. That's the key.
yeah,
Like, I saw
exactly.
that picture, I was like, so the rioters are using, or the protesters or whatever are using the velvet ropes. Like, that makes no sense.
Yeah,
Like,
it's
like
so,
they thought they were going on a tour, you know, they were going to go talk to somebody. They didn't know what the hell was going
yeah, they're like, oh, I remember I worked at the Smithsonian a really long time ago when I lived in DC, and I remember like on Saturdays, or I'm just in the mall area and I just walk around to the different museums, and you'd see these tour buses of people from different parts of the United States, and like they had families, and there'd be school groups or whatever, and like people would just be like, oh, wow, like we made it, we're here. The history, you could just feel that like awe and reverence that they have for the just this all. I'm glad I'm talking to you about it, because it makes sense. If you're going to stage an event, you need to have like real authentic MAGA people in the building, and unfortunately they're like, oh no, I don't want to participate.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's a mixture. You know what I'm saying? Like there's people who are on the Trump side are very much wanting to go in there and hang people,
And they went in there, yeah, and they went in there first, but I just think there weren't enough. They didn't have the numbers that they needed.
and
Yeah.
there obviously wasn't a good plan, right? You just had a few idiots who could lead a charge, and it wasn't like a movement to go do a thing, right? Like people want to kind of make it think that that's what was going down, but like it looks like a bunch of idiots showed up. Like if you showed up at a NFL game, right? If you were at an NFL game and a bunch of people were out there and everybody had been drinking or something, and you just started steering the crowd, you could steer those idiots into like like you could break a window and go in.
Hold on. Yeah. Oh, you can look, and I'm not sure for what. Oh, wow. That's good. Oh, sorry. My son just cut his locks off, and I was like, what happened to you? So,
Okay.
cut them off? Oh, why are they so short? Never mind. Oh, okay. Oh, he didn't cut his hair. Whatever. But you know what I think? You were saying that they didn't have a good plan. I think that they did have a good plan, and it would have worked if, well, in a sense they did have a good plan, but they didn't have the like wisdom and understanding. Like, how people project themselves onto other people, and these people who, we'll call them Antifa, whether they're like mercenaries, they say Antifa is just an idea, but obviously they're a group of people with an ideology. If I'm one of them, I really don't love this country. I might even have a hatred for this country, right? Or I have ideas. And so when I look at you, if you really love this country, I cannot imagine in my mind the love that you have for the country. And I project myself into you. And I make a plan for how to manipulate your behavior in a scenario, but I don't account for the condition of your heart. Like, I don't take into account that maybe you love the Capitol building so much, you might feel comfortable running all over the outside, but when it comes to the inside, you're going to be kind of reticent. You're going to be a little bit more thoughtful. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. There's a disconnect between the way they thought human behavior would go down versus, so
exactly.
they have enough people causing the problems to make it look like
Yeah, because I
everybody.
think it was much easier for them with the BLM protesters, because the BLM protesters, they have a different mindset about it. You know,
Yeah.
like their mindset is, we have to tear the system down. We have to tear it down. The system is bad and evil. And so that those thoughts drive their, like those thoughts drive their actions. It's easy to spark a fire in them. It's like they're ready to go. You know what I mean? Like, and I'm just saying, most Black Lives Matter protesters want to protest peacefully anyway. They're not going to protest to cause mayhem and stuff like that. They don't want the violence and mayhem. But I think the underlying feeling that the system is fundamentally flawed, that feeling can be manipulated so much more easily and can drive a person to like take more aggressive action than somebody who fundamentally believes this institution at its core is really good and we need to protect and preserve it.
Yeah. I mean, I think, on the right, they're trying to, like, their values and stuff are, we need to restore law and order. And on the left, it is, we need to tear down the existing structure and create chaos to put something new in.
Yeah.
Whereas right, we need to reorganize it. We need to make the structure more organized. That's the problem. Not that it needs breaking up. It needs putting back together.
Right.
Worldviews, different levels of psychological development that you see, and you can manipulate them with different ways. Like I was talking about, like kids, like in the peekaboo game, right? Like there's different rules to the psychological framework that these two major groups have in their mind. They can be manipulated in different ways.
Yeah.
And how you go about that, there's, like advertisers know it, psychological analysts know it, crowds, study of crowds, things like that. Like there's people who've gotten it down to an art and a science, and like people do that. Like people specialize in those regions, in psychological warfare and things like that. And
Yeah, which is being done upon us.
yeah, like
It's obvious to me, but for some people, they'll go, no way, but
yeah.
that's obvious.
Well, and